the experience if we were to switch gender roles or identity roles in our family?
You mean I would have to deal with all the kids' stuff and making sure that I knew everybody's birth dates and when everybody got married and when to buy gifts and how to balance a checkbook and when I can spend money, and I have to do all of that though? Wait, hold on now.
There's a whole bunch of emotional management.
But wait a minute. Do you have to go out and work, make all the money, and deal with all the stress of maybe not having enough to bring back to the family? Do you have to do that?
There may be an element of empathy that we both, no matter what role you're playing in your household, may benefit from in seeing the other point of view. And that's what we're going to dig into today. The weight of what emotional management can do in a family, as well as kind of our rebuttals for just doling out responsibility.
Mama says namaste. Mama says namaste.
Making a family can be easy and fun.
Oh yeah, but raising a family can be a whole different story.
From spouses to kids to the crazy daily grind, life often directs us away from connection and more into reactive chaos.
If you're tired of that cycle and are seeking something beyond the picket fence blues, this is the show for you.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Nathan.
And we're here to take you from chaos to clarity by bringing awareness and intention into your home, not waiting for one day, and highlighting how
the uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us.
Take a deep breath in and let's start a brand new day. With Mama says namaste.
So I was reading an article out loud to Nathan today that was talking, it was by Gemma Hartley, and she'd written this back in 2017. I think it was for Vogue magazine. And she had written this article about how she was frustrated with, she was just frustrated with the responsibility at home. And she really positioned it as the emotional management baggage. And it's all of that. It's not just taking care of the kids or cleaning the house. It's
the cloud of stuff that we have to keep up in the air for our lives to work.
Right. I mean, it's things like, her example in the article that she'd written was her frustration just because she had asked for a cleaning service for Mother's Day. And her husband took it to the point of he's going to just clean the bathroom for her, which left her to clean up everything else around, take care of the kids and everything while he was busy. Whereas what she was really looking for was like, it's a pain to go through to research which is the best cleaning service and to call and to vet and to price check and to figure out what's the best decision for the family. Those things, I'm sure that there are many of you who are listening to this can relate. It's not just being a mom or a dad. I mean, there are admin tasks of running a household, the management admin ones of choosing what services you're going to use, recognizing how bills are being paid, coordinating schedules.
And oftentimes in a relationship, this is taken for granted or just assumed. There's never, I don't remember us when we first got married, kind of doling out, all right, I'll be in charge of X and you'll be in charge of Y. It just kind of falls kind of haphazardly into place is what I've found typically.
And I would also stress that I don't know that it falls haphazardly as much as we default into our comfort zone.
We fall into our conditioning.
We do. We fall into our conditioning. And I think this is an interesting one for Nathan and I to discuss. And we have referenced this in previous episodes where we talked about gender roles in marriage. And we actually talked about how Nathan and I have, in a lot of ways, switched what those traditional roles are, with him being way more of the stay-at-home parent right now and me being way more of the provider role.
Well, and I think that's been an interesting tenet of our relationship. Not to go like left turn here, but we have come from two very different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And we approach life in two very different ways, both finding very different kinds of success. Mm-hmm. And we have both tried each other's types of success in a way.
Put on the hat for the other person.
Yeah, we've never been afraid to, like I haven't been afraid to try levels of entrepreneurship. You haven't been afraid to work for a corporation. Mm-hmm. These aren't things that we have said, no, I won't try. This is not in my wheelhouse.
that kind of just goes into the concept of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. I mean, we talk about this a lot, that everything that we talk about on this podcast is coming from a growth mindset vantage point. Nathan and I have moved past a fixed mindset of thinking and have no desire to go back there. So we are speaking from an element of we are willing and open to trying and learning. We recognize that who we are now is not who we intend to be 5 years from now. And we see that as a positive because, I mean, I recognize my mind is continuing to expand and to develop, and I'm getting more and more aware of what my mind is capable of every moment that I open a door to growth.
And a lot of times this doesn't come up until we're frustrated and we're looking at our lives saying, man, I don't want to be here, but I don't know how to get there. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes we've gotten so thick in it. I mean, I remember when I had complete and utter control of the finances. I was a banker, and so I just looked at it every single day. And so it was just an assumed role that I took on. And when we switched and went on the road, you took on that full responsibility. And I think what was interesting is that you grew out of that, and you understand how money works better than you did before because of that experience, I think.
Well, I think the key that you're saying there is we have been willing to try out the other person's shoes. I know it is hard sometimes to empathize if we can't come to some point of commonality in ourselves. I mean, unless we can find a personal connection, it makes it hard. I mean, that's why we stress and why we talk about the tagline being the uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us. We're trying to find that element of empathy, that element of something within you that can cause an element of connection and understanding for another. And so when it came to our household, both of us decided, going back to that family vision, we decided, our why for having this family was to create a family of love and light that had a ripple effect beyond ourselves. We recognized that our family would have a ripple effect beyond ourselves no matter what. So we decided at the beginning of that to be intentional about what that was. And because of that, we decided to work as a team to create the family we wanted. And I think, and I guess a props to our work ethic that was instilled in both of us. For whatever reasons, the work ethic that we have, we both recognize the best way to really be skilled at what it is you're doing is to have experienced all facets of it. And so we recognize that, even that traditional working your way up the corporate ladder, like recognizing what it's like to be at the lowest end of the totem pole and giving respect to that. And so when we came to dealing with family dynamics and running a household, we both were willing to try that out. I mean, I remember like getting frustrated with you about scouring a bathroom. Okay, I am definitely the cleaner in the family, and I am way more of the housekeeper. And that's my background. I mean, my mother cleaned houses, and she took me along with her when I was a teenager, and I was a young tween and teen. I mean, as I was homeschooled, a lot of times my day was spent following my mother around and helping with cleaning houses. I learned a lot on how to do that and how to do it effectively. And I showed Nathan. Now, I still have a tendency to be the one that does it, but Nathan knows what it's like to scour a bathroom.
I've tried. Well, but I think that's to another point. We also, we're also all at different stages of excellence, and I think that there's not to downplay it, but I've always been accused of not being able to see all the dirt my entire life. My dad, I don't know if maybe it's my Dwayne syndrome. I can blame it on that. But I have always been accused of, you missed that spot, I still try, but I swear when I shave, there's hair everywhere falling all over the place.
Yes.
So there's nothing I can do. But, and to that point, it's important, I think, to accept each other's strengths and weaknesses to a degree. To see that, is this something that I want to try to make this fish climb a tree and feel stupid, or do I want to just manage my energy so that I can work around that? And that was part of, in that article, was the discussion of what conversations, what battles are worth pushing.
Right.
Because if you're coming from a relationship where you have not started experimenting with this stuff, like I remember when you and I had that aha conversation of we're going to go left or we're going to go right. Mm-hmm. And that was going
and to be specific, the aha conversation of, are we working together, or is our pride our biggest factor here? I mean,
Yes.
Because really, and I would say really the bottom line in that specific situation was Nathan calling me out on my pride, because my ego said, I'm right, you're wrong. And
I said,
I
fine, is that how you want to build a relationship now? With
Exactly.
a big wall inside of it. And so if you want, I don't think it's really worth it. We might as well break up now. But if you're going to let go of that, then let's try something new and just explore some stuff.
Yeah. And so when it came to, I mean, like, for example, with parenting, I remember that the first 2 weeks of having Clara, and I had just gone through the sampler platter of birth trauma and had trying all natural, the nurses not trusting me and pushing I guess I was pushed to get induced, and then I got an epidural that was a super heavy duty one that was supposed to prep for a C-section, and then having an emergency cesarean, and Clara's heart rate dropping, and a lot of, it was a major toll, and it was a major toll on my body, where I essentially was kind of recovering from every form of birth because of how long the process was and how far down in the pushing process we were before emergency cesarean was needed. So I was toast, and here we are back in our home, and Nathan's looking at me, completely incapable of doing much at all, and in tears and exhausted, and he had to step it up and be there for our baby. And oh my gosh, you jumped in like crazy. And for the first 2 weeks, I didn't change a diaper. I mean, for the first 2 weeks, here is my whole mission in life was to be a mama. This all had come to fruition, and I physically could not step up to the plate. I could not do what needed to be done. And Nathan, you completely jumped in and you took on that role and you owned it.
And I remember that was the scariest moment of my life, because the first diaper I changed was after Ashley had gone to bed. You had passed out, and I had wiped her, and there was just a little tiny bit of blood, and I was afraid that I had really hurt her. And so I called the nurse's office, and they said, "Oh, son, that's normal. It's everything's moving. Hormones. You have not done anything.
You haven't hurt her or injured her."
But it took, I think that is, you have to face into the unknowns, and you have to tackle the unexpecteds in life. We had a perfect little birth plan on how things were going to go, and all of that went out the window, and we have a choice to either pivot or be angry about it. And so, and be frustrated with the loss of not getting our way. And that is where you can shift through these roles where it really feels uncomfortable and scary. You have to just understand and trust in yourself to be able to carry what comes, even if you don't know. There's people out there that can help you, and just having that confidence in yourself is really important.
Oh, and on that note of trust, building that trust with your partner. And I have an article, a blog post that I'll link to that's called "If You Want Daddy to Be Involved, Get Out of the Way." And it's my come to Jesus talk for mamas that say, my husband doesn't help out at all with the kids. And I'm like, okay, well, how have you let them? Is it you lording over them, micromanaging the way that they play? Is it when you leave a checklist 5,000 miles long of everything they need to do and exactly how they need to put the baby down? This is the exact routine you have to follow?
Well, I want to ask you a question. Even to this day, do you agree with everything, my approaches with everything?
Absolutely not.
Right. But
I love you enough to trust the process and to trust that the relationship that you are creating with your daughters is an amazing father-daughter bond where neither one of you are going to get it right all the time, but that love is solid. And I trust that love better than I trust every single random decision you make. And I'm willing to give grace in that. And I do that.
But my point there is we don't go to bed with me knowing you've been ticked off at hearing how the day has gone.
No. Well, and I think that, part of me doing that is recognizing that you give me that same grace. And I would say that's my challenge to those of you who may be frustrated with your partner not stepping it up with kids, especially. Are you giving them the grace to have their own relationship with their children, or are you expecting that they have the same relationship you do? My relationship with my daughters is very different than Nathan's. And I'm really grateful that they give both, especially in light of our lifestyle. And really, if you look at it in light of 2020, where we may have families that are spending way more quality time, I hope that, that my kids are able to have a little bit more of a, school of hard knocks reality check sometimes, maybe than what I'm willing to give, that Nathan will give. And I see it as an element of tough love. And then I also look at it and I go, man, I'm so glad that they were able to get that conversation and be knocked down by their daddy, who then turns around and gives them a big hug and tells them how much he loves them, than for them to have gotten that conversation from some random jerk guy who knocks them down at 18 because they've been coddled before then.
Yeah, there is some real truth to calling out our cyclical things that come up into our life, where having those conversations of, this isn't the first time, is it? You remember having this conversation. We're here again. What got us here? Why are we here? Do you like being here? Do you like this feeling? Well, if this doesn't shift, this is the feeling that will continue to come up in life. This isn't going to go away. And so you pivot or you fall into the same trap and you get to do it again. And so that, our relationships with each other are the same things. Usually our tension points are usually centered around 2 or 3 things. Mm-hmm. They're usually not, these big pile of things that we, that they all live in these big piles of things around our lives, but it's really around either being heard or being, really it's mostly about being heard is what I feel. Oftentimes we don't feel heard or understood.
And so there's where, when it comes to looking at, roles in the family or ways to help out and work with one another, as much as I'm all for, in some senses, assigning roles, I also have to add the caveat that those roles are fluid. So with Nathan and I mean, let's just think about it. Let's go through specifically, what are some roles you own right now in the family?
So I do all the cooking, all the dish work, all the moving of the camper, all the stuff that works around the camper and the going ins and going outs of it, making sure that works, the teaching, taking the kids out, going places. I drive everywhere.
Uh-huh. So, and on that note, I will say, have I done all the cooking? Heck yeah. I've been in that role, and I've done that. So I have major appreciation for Nathan because I know the hard work that is involved. And the reason Nathan has all the role is not because I hate cooking. I love cooking, and there was very much a time in my life where I saw my frustrations in the kitchen as an absolute failure as a mom. I'm supposed to be Susie Homemaker, and I'm supposed to be amazing in the kitchen. And what I found is it was more of a stressor for me. And I looked at Nathan, and it's like art, and he'd make it come alive, and he had joy in doing it, and he was so creative, and oh my gosh, the food's amazing. And so, we both had the opportunity to own that role, and we decided that Nathan is he's the best candidate for it in our family. That does not mean I refuse to enter the kitchen. I still will step it up, and there are random times I'll cook. There are often times I'll get up and I'll clean because I don't mind washing dishes at all, and I'm the only one in the family that really doesn't mind it. So I'm okay with doing that. I never look at that and go, well, that's Nathan's role and that's Nathan's responsibility. I'm not going to step it up. We all show gratitude because I make sure and make it a point to let my kids know I know the weight of what this is. This is a very important job that Daddy is doing for the family. And I recognize the mental toll it takes to figure this out and also to, be rejected if somebody doesn't like the food. I recognize the weight of all that. And so, yes, he has that role. And no, it is not a black and white thing. I respect and honor that, show gratitude for it, and am glad and happy to step up and help him in that in any way, shape, or form.
I was just thinking I got more rejection in the kitchen here than I got in real estate cold calling.
That's true. Kids
real
can be
estate
horrible
prepared
critics.
me for being the at-home dad.
Yeah.
Well, but to your point, why don't you answer the same question? What does your day look like?
Yeah, and so now my day, I'm the one who is making sure the bills are paid and that we're on top of our bookkeeping. We know where our money is going in and out, and that rentals are being paid for on time, and our utilities are being paid at our rental houses. I am also doing the work through Mama Says Namaste in 48 days that's bringing in our main source of income. I tend to be the one that is the role of the coordinator, of coordinating what things we're doing if we're meeting up with other people or anything like that. I am way more virtually connected with our outside world. So that means that I am the one that knows whose birthday is coming up next in the family, and if it's time for us to FaceTime with a family member, or if we're coordinating schedules and things like that. That is definitely something that it is in my wheelhouse. I'm already there. I'm already connected and talking with people. I know this aspect well.
And she does not like watching me do that.
And I've recognized it is super hard for me to not micromanage Nathan. So when Nathan does it, it is hard for me to not be leaning over him, telling him how to do it. And that right there is, oh my gosh, can be such a relationship sabotager.
And to that point, the way we usually handle it is, it sounds like you really want this way more than me right now. So why don't you take it? I can assist you, and to handle it if it really is something that you want to do. And then that gives you the opportunity to say, okay, I'll take it because you're offering it, or I see that what you're saying, and I will back off and let you do it.
Oh, and right there, I think it's really been brought to my attention lately. The importance of the way we speak to one another. Semantics are critical. I mean, for that situation right there, Nathan, you could come back to me and go, "Will you stop jumping down my throat and micromanaging me? You asked me to do it."
Doesn't mean that I don't do that.
Right. You can get frustrated, but saying, stop micromanaging me, get off my back, or, well, fine, you do it, is very different than what you just said, Nathan.
Yeah, it sounds like this is way more important to you than it is to me. And that's okay. Like we have, if you're honest with that experience, I mean, one thing that I realized when I was doing real estate that probably drives you crazy a little bit is the fires, it's okay to let them burn. I had to realize that there was always a fire going on all the time. Being at home is the same thing. There's always a demand and always a need, and it has to happen right now. And if you don't compartmentalize that and manage that yourself, then you will be controlled by, I liken it to being in a preschool covered in lollipops, and you're trying to walk through a gymnasium with 400 kids. They're all going to come to you and say, "Can I have a?" And you have to talk to four. I mean, that's the way life can feel sometimes, unless you start to manage when those can I's show up.
This is one of those times where we just have those candid conversations again. And as we're doing it, I'm formulating what these key tips are. And I think that, number one, the ability to empathize and to experience what it's like in the other person's role. And sometimes that has been, if there's been major frustration, it is us inviting each other to watch. And so it is not, this is how you have to do it. But, okay, just will you step into my mind for a minute? Let me show you what my process is and what I'm doing. And that's it. We're not giving each other this is how it is, but this is the experience I've had, because that opens that first door to understanding where the other person's coming from. And so having some empathy, and then another aspect of it is just getting out of the way. And so, like when it comes to the scheduling thing, I was taking on all the scheduling. And when we first were on the road, it was a major stressor. With my need for control and managing every aspect of it, I took on not only being the sole breadwinner of the family at the moment, other than our rentals, not only being the sole breadwinner of the family, but I was also the one taking on all of the campground bookings I took that responsibility on, not only for us, but also for my father-in-law who was traveling with us. So here I am trying to book 2 campgrounds every, 3 days to 2 weeks, and trying to figure out all of that scheduling. And it was super difficult, but it was incredibly hard for me to get out of that. And so I had to flat out let go of my agenda on how it would work and enjoy the process of letting Nathan just take us places for a while.
And what that means sometimes is letting Nathan fall flat on his face if he's incapable, and recognizing...
Like when we've double booked or
double
didn't showed up when there wasn't a booking.
I'll tell you what, we were never homeless except for once. And that was when you were booked it.
It was, yes. Yeah. The only time we ended up not having a place to stay was actually my fault on a double booking.
Sweet redemption for my ignorance.
Exactly.
Well, but I think that is the beauty that I think is important to realize is, there are a lot of different ways of getting to the same place. Mm-hmm. And we all think that our path is the best. And we all think that the rest of the world should know that. And that's not always the case. Sometimes we get to the same flow when you're letting go of how you get there. And I think in a relationship, the end goal is to have fulfillment and compassion and love for each other and watch each other blossom in this life. Mm-hmm. If you're not rooting for the other person across the table from you, then you may want to reconsider what you're doing, because that is the essence of why that's why I'm here.
And us having those conversations about what we wanted our family to look like and what we wanted our life to look like was really helpful in that. Because, yes, I have to empathize with where Nathan's coming from, and I also have to trust Nathan enough as the man I have fallen in love with and choose to love actively every single day. Part of that love is trust that you have a brain to think on your own, and that I respect your brain so much that not only do I value the impact that you've had in my life, but I respect and value the impact that brain and your way of doing things will have on our own children.
Because if that's not explored together, what can happen is what we've walked a lot of friends and family members through is the divorce process, where they are ripped apart from that experience and thrust and forced into a position where they either feel extremely out of control constantly or are forced to deal with the demons of what they haven't done. And will and do stand up on their own 2 feet in the ways that the other was frustrated with in the end, both learning the lesson, but both in a very different space and opposite of each other. Mm-hmm. And so, those are, I think that our own limitations, if you will, the husband will pay the bills when he has to get his own apartment.
Right.
That is a harsh reality that occurs.
Right. And so think about that. If the other partner were not a part of the family, what would you be willing to step up and do? Are you able to do it? And especially parents, this is a reality check for you. Our life is precious, and we cannot assume or guarantee that our partner will be there to carry it. And if our partner is not, where does the responsibility lie for those children? And so whether this is the case of yes, separation or divorce, or whether this is the loss of a life, we have to understand and know the logistics of working on a household. Nathan, when you're talking about the roles that you have done and the roles you do, so I can empathize with cooking. I can empathize with bill paying. I can empathize with driving. I know how to drive. But that being said, I don't pool the rig. And I don't do outside setup of the rig and do sewer. And with that being said, I ask Nathan questions. I watch him when he does it. I have him teach me and educate me, because although we 100% are okay with him owning that role, we recognize it's really critical for me as a responsible parent to step up and know how to do it in case of emergency, so that I'm not left incapable. And I believe that you can have very distinct roles. My mom rarely ever puts gas in her car, because that's something that Dad has always done for her. That being said, she darn well better know how to put gas in her car, which she does, and she can do. If Dad is not there, she can put gas in her own car. Make sure that even if you have specific roles, that the other parent, as a responsible parent, recognizes and knows how to handle in the case of an emergency or some kind of fallout where the other person is not there.
Because that's just pouring additional stress on that's just gasoline on the fire. And I think that that's one thing that's really helped us keep our, that energy and that tension level down over these last 4 years, is because of the empathy and having been in each other's shoes. I think there is a recognition of when the stress is too high and you need the breaks, and the recognition of understanding the fear and sometimes knowing what's on the other side of that fear for the partner. I mean, I know that you've had fears of, are we going to make all this work, and, financially, this is what's cooking. And, I've had fears and insecurities of, well, gosh, are we doing the right thing? Should I be, focusing my energies elsewhere rather than where we are right now? And, I think as you explore those things in life, it's going to come up. Fear is always that little voice. We call it the drunk monkey, that says, they're not going to want to hear from you, or you shouldn't try that. And, I think that's completely normal, but I love that we can recognize that in each other in a way and be able to help each other when that pops up.
So I'd say 4 things here. We've talked about empathy. We've talked about the importance of trust. We've talked about getting out of the way, or, that trust being that getting out of the way. And the 2 other things that you've touched on here is prioritizing. Recognizing, is it really a true fire? Is this really a true emergency that needs to be addressed? Nathan's had to call me out on this one a lot because I am, like I've said many times before, a bit of a clean freak. And I can have a very short fuse and tight leash on what I think is appropriate cleanliness and what is not. And so with my grandparents, with their Amish background, I remember my grandmother when she taught me how to sew. And I would sew a hem, and I'd be all the way finished with the whole hem, and the last stitch was slightly off, and she would have me take the whole thing out and redo it, because if you aren't going to do it right, why do it at all? And so I had this so drilled into me that you do it right the first time, that I can risk taking that to the extreme of being so critical. I don't praise any success, because I'm looking at all of the little details that were wrong.
Well, who says what's right?
Right. Those are the questions that Nathan asks me. And then I'm looking at, okay, in the scope of life, is my relationship with my child, does it need to be grounded on the tiny bit of cat hair in the corner versus, the fact that they were so proud that they got up and they swept this morning?
Well, and maybe that's recognizing the paradox of our life to a degree. They're kind of laughing at the paradox of our life. Because, I hear that importance there. And I remember learning in Native American culture where when they create something, they intentionally leave something out of place or slightly wrong or off to represent the opportunity that exists in nature. That nothing is ever the same in nature. That it's not uniform. And so there is that, and they both have a similar message of value.
Oh, I know. And he would tease me about that by the fact of, throw his boxers right in front of the laundry basket, which is the classic, husband thing. He throws all of his laundry in front. And I'm rolling my eyes and annoyed by it. And then he says, oh, I do that just to remind you I'm thinking about you and I love you. And then I can still get ticked, but I'm ticked with a smile on my face because I'm thinking of that snarky comment of him just loving me and doing it as a love note.
Those are with piles and piles of deposits.
Yes.
You don't just drop that out of the blue.
Yes, that is only...
If you've been in the doghouse in the last week, don't say that.
Don't do that at all. All right, but anyway, so...
But using humor... I was partially joking with a lot of that. Bringing up humor in some of those tense moments of, look, we are all human. Look at it as a love note. It's all how you slice it in your own mind, because that is, if you think about it, the way you digest every interaction, that is with the ones you love and the ones you don't, always what you carry around. And I guess my point with that was when you see something that annoys you, you're the one that carries around that pain, and you're choosing to carry around that annoyance way beyond a pair of underwear, when you could choose it to look at, I love and appreciate that human. He's just right there, sloppy as he can be. Now, that does not excuse my behavior, and it just changes the way you see something that angers you or frustrates you, that would change your whole energy in the way that you interact with everyone throughout the day.
Yeah, so picking your battles is important. Is it really worth it? And thinking about those things that you're getting worked up on, always think about, is that worth the relationship? Would you walk away from the relationship for this? If not, put it into a little bit of perspective. That was my deciding factor. Am I gonna leave Nathan for the boxers on the floor? No. And quite honestly,
if you were me, I would have mailed them to me. Instead of washing them, I would have put them in a package and mailed them off.
That's a really great idea. Okay, there you go.
See,
There's a parent hack. Just mail all the dirty laundry to your partner. It would be perfect.
What is this? Oh, I got a package. What? Oh my God, it's my own dirty laundry. Got it, babe.
Just remember your goals as a family. Are you a family team? Are you guys working together to make things work? I mean, the other aspect of that is not only do we have empathy and trust, and we let things roll because we have to look at the big picture, but we also, like you were talking about, do a bit of that tag team approach. And when we recognize we're fried, again, we've tried out all of these different roles. We've experienced what these are, or at least been educated by our partners so that we understand all of the elements of running a household. And so when one of us is fried, we ask the other to take over. And we've done that, whether that's having a conversation with our kids, or whether that's, handling a store return or calling and scheduling a campground. We both have done it. And even though at this point now, Nathan's in charge of campgrounds, I'm calling and doing refunds and changing different things. And I'm scheduling campgrounds as well, because Nathan was busy the other day and I needed to. So it's not that we get so stuck in it, because again, our goal is to work together for the family, not to go, well, you're supposed to do this.
And that's where you can really get into a trap sometimes it is important to have assigned roles because things can get really messed up if you don't.
But that's communicating clear understanding, maybe even on a daily basis.
Right. Or recognizing a need is all, and that is, that is where that give and take and those deposits and those withdrawals really start to float, because I think that is what can really be beneficial for a relationship, is starting to give and take in that way. Mm-hmm. Like my grandparents, I never really understood why they had really specific ways that they would give to each other. It was weird to me, but I understand to a degree, like that was just how they worked, was he gives by this and I give by that, and then beyond that is all cream. Right? But we know we've got a standard. If that, every relationship is unique, just like your own kids. And so you have to hack your own relationship and find out what works. We've just found out, these are tips and things that have worked for us. But it is important to just open and face into your partner for what, let's just have an honest conversation. Well, I hate dishes. Well, I don't mind it. So if I can take that off your plate, I hate paying the bills. Well, I don't mind doing that. And so, there are these commonalities that you can start to uncover and find just by having honest conversations around, or if we don't like paying the bills, how can we create a situation where we don't have to worry about it?
That's complete truth. That's why we have a bookkeeper.
Right.
Neither one of us do like that. And so we went to the effort to get a bookkeeper I absolutely love. And she makes things so much easier, knowing that I've got that part covered. And we made the decision to do that as a family because we want our time and energy to be focused on the things that we're really skilled at and that we can do well. So, again, looking at all of those opportunities for a family team. And now this is really important. Next week, we're going to dive into dealing with the toxic people in our lives. And when I look back over all almost 180 episodes we have, hands down, the most listened to podcast episode that we have is on toxic relationships. And we haven't discussed this one since 2018. So I'm ready to, I think it was episode 57 was the toxic relationships one before. And we want to go back and hash that out again on how to navigate that. And let me tell you, toxic relationships within your own home, your own nuclear family can be really, really tough. And it can be hard to navigate. And I know that for some, that's what we're dealing with. For a lot of you also, though, as we're nearing the holidays, you're getting ready to face, or you are right now navigating, some of those extended family toxic relationships that are still there, that you try to keep at bay, but always rear its ugly head around the holidays. So we're going to talk about that and how you can go from there. And this element that we talked about this week, about us being on the same page and working together as a team, recognizing it's not me against Nathan, or Nathan against the family, or all of us on our own islands. But we are on our little family island where we have to all work together to maintain it, to look out for one another, and to empathize and be supportive of one another is really important. And when we can do that, we have way more of a solid foundation and a great support system to navigate the toxic relationships that we all get hit with in our lives.
Right, where you don't spend the drive back talking about everybody else, but just how you enjoyed yourself.
Right, and being able to let that go and leave that.
Exactly.
So, as always, starting within, really understanding who you are is so valuable, so you recognize what triggers you and how you can bring your best self forward. Then going beyond that to your family, and recognizing how they can thrive and how you can work together as a team. To each of you identify those elements of synergy where I can recognize, oh man, Clara can really help me with the coordinating and the detailed here. And Ellie can really help with making it a fun time and engaging people in this way. And Nathan can really help with his ability to host in the way that he does. And I'm seeing all of these different ways that each of our family members can contribute. That is such a powerful way to really see how the uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us. Namaste.
1, 2, 3. Up with the rising sun, already on the run. Mama says namaste. Life is a tangled mess, and you don't have to stress. Mama says namaste. 'Cause today I will stand up and be all the change that I want to see in this world. Boys and girls, you gotta have to stand up to be free. Namaste in your home. Take a deep breath in, then let's start a brand new day. With Mama says namaste.